Okay, your should work now. Try that. Try that now.
Yeah, okay. Pick one. There we go. Everybody see that okay?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Greg.
Okay, and I tell you, what I really like and I miss right now is seeing everybody. Because I get feedback from, when I talk to people as to if you're understanding what I'm saying or not. But anyhow, I recognize a lot of your calls. I've worked you in contests. I've worked you on de-expeditions. And I appreciate it, every QSO, because it's a lot of fun. And you'll probably figure out that by the time I'm done with this, that I love this hobby. And I don't have a job anymore because my ham radio is kind of my job. So I get a big kick out of it. And I haven't ever really spoke about VHF contesting before. So I thought that was pretty cool that Paul asked me to do this. I've spoken on a variety of subjects, but not this particular thing. So it was kind of fun to put it together, especially when we just had the June VHF contest. So now my screen will, there we go. So he already said some of this. So I've been licensed for a little while. And one of the first things I did when I got my novice license was getting the novice roundup. I didn't understand what everybody was doing, but it didn't take me long to figure out. And I've been in, I have been in the electronic systems business since 1973 when I was still a student. And I started my own business in '80, and it's still going and surviving all the shutdowns and all the stuff that a person has to go through. In about 2000, I made a goal of in 2010, I was not going to have a job at my company. And in the process, I decided that I'd get involved in contesting and build a nice station. And one of the things that I really also love to do is I like to DX. And a lot of people that are contesters and DXers share that passion. So when I was designing all of this, that was kind of one of those 1 and 2 things that I wanted to do. And another thing, if you're doing de-expeditioning, it's kind of like field day on steroids. So you learn a lot about what you can and cannot do to make a successful operation, and especially in temporary setups. But at the same time, you learn that from contest station design. So my goals when I was building the station was to have a competitive contest and DX station. And I'll explain what that means. One of the things I figured out early is that you have to kind of pick what class you're going to be in, and because you need to design around those ideas. You need to lay out your antennas. You actually need to purchase the property so that you can take advantage of those situations. A lot of people don't even think about that, but it is so true. And the other thing I wanted to make sure is that the operators were all comfortable, that when I had team members would come, I like to invite them. I want them to feel they're very comfortable. I want them to feel like they're at home. I want them to feel like they're welcome. And the reason I say that is because if you've ever had these experiences, sometimes you'll leave and go, I wish the chairs were better. I wish I could see better. I wish we didn't have the glare in our eyes. I wish it was always cold in there. It was, whatever. Or you felt like, where's my bed? I don't have a bed. I got to sleep where Joe's sleeping. I've been in all those situations. So I thought I'm going to build something where I could invite people and they would come and then want to stay. So when I bought this property, I looked for a property for a couple of years. It was very difficult to find, but I actually found it. It's only about 4 miles as the crow flies from my home. And it's a 20-acre piece of property, and it's right in the middle. And I'll take and it's surrounded by some trees here. I'm taking my mouse here and going around it. This is what it looked like just a little bit after when I bought it. And you can see there's lots of trees and all kinds of stuff around here. And it was kind of a horse farm. And the lady taught people how to ride horse. And inside this big building was a riding arena with mirrors. And then after I bought it, I cleaned it all up. I took all the trees down. I tiled the property. You can actually see a pile of 55 tons of tires that we recycled. and I had to remove all that. And they're probably somebody's football field, you know, like track field or something, on a track someplace. But anyhow, I cleaned that all up. I took all the barns down, and then I built a building right here, the ham shack. And you'll see all the different antennas. And actually, you can see where it's brown right here. That's the 160 meter array. There's a 5-element 160 meter array that's rotatable. And that's the ground system. It takes about 2.5 acres.
How many?
And by the way, the
altogether?
alfalfa grows the best wherever you put wire in the ground.
Yeah, Craig, how many acres do you have altogether there?
Well, there's 20 right here. And I mean, there's a lot to this story in terms of trying to find the ideal property. This is actually quite flat. And this is an 80-meter foursquare, and you can see where the radials are buried around here. And just last year, I bought this property.
Ooh.
Whoa.
So that's now my last fall. I went on a de-expedition, so I didn't have a lot of time, but I was able to get up a bunch of beverages, and I have a 160 high Z Circle 8, and I have one for 80 and 160, and I have several antennas I put up temporarily, and I put them right over there. So I have a lot of isolation between 160 and 80 over here. It's 1,500 feet from here to here, and it's 500 and some feet from here to here, and these are identical pieces. So it was kind of cool. So this is what it looks like from the air. And the 160 is down here. It's a 5-element array, and this is the 40-meter stack. And there's 4/4, and that's a 190-foot tower on top of a rotatable base. Excuse me, that's the 160. Here's the 40. Here's the 20. That's again a 190-foot tower. There's 6/6/6, and in between, I put these ideally apart so I can have a 160-meter dipole between them. And if we were talking about HF contesting, I had explained all of this, but I'm going to just skip by it. And then, excuse me, right here's a 15-meter array at 7/7/7, and above here I have a loop for receiving antenna, Waller flag, and right here is another 150-foot tower, and that's 2 DB42 steppers that actually the top one will do 80 through 6 meters and the bottom will do 40 through 6 meters. And I have them so I can combine them, so I can have a stacked 40 meter or I can have a stacked 30 meter. And let me tell you, a stacked 30 meter is really competitive. Not a lot of people have that. At the very top of that is some VHF antennas. And over here, closer to the shack, and you'll notice low frequencies all the way up to the high frequencies because of the coaxial losses. I wanted a less than 0.5 dB loss to the shack from any tower. So those are all 1 5/8 all the way back to here.
Hey, Craig, I'm disappointed. I don't see a beverage.
Oh, we have all kinds of beverages, but they're put up right in the space now. They normally would have been in here, but I have beverages in here. And so we have all kinds of choices, and I have a splitting system, and each person can listen to their own beverage, or you can share. So well, I put them all over there. And then here's the VHF stack, and I'll come to that, but I just wanted you to get the big picture here of kind of what it looks like. So then I added this antenna because you can never have enough of them. So this is, I had an HBX 589. I have 2 of them here at home. I'm speaking to from home. And I just moved this one here. And one of the things I found out when I was contesting is I really didn't have good domestic antennas because they're all like super sharp. I mean, you could aim at Southern California, or you could aim at Northern California, or you could aim at Washington, you know, so for sweepstakes, that's not a very good situation. So I put this antenna here, I can raise up to 90 feet, but a lot of times I keep it down low. And then right above there is a 5-element M squared. So another angle, you can see that's the 6 meter 6 and 2 up here, those are all LFAs up here. I had 18 triple X's, but they broke. And I put the LFA here for 2 meters. These are stacked LFAs on 6 meters. And of course, this is 8/8/8 on 10 meters. And down here's a 2-meter EME array. And that's the shack right there. So this is what happens when you get wind, and I'm sure you guys out in the range know what I'm talking about. Ice and wind are not our friends, and just snapped the 18 triple X right in half. I had $48,000 worth of repairs I had to do from ice and wind about 4 years ago. And cranes are your friend. So this is how the station was laid out. And this is half of the station. This is the HF side. And yeah, as you can see, I had, when I first built this, it was all Elecraft. I had 8 Elecraft stations. And there were 487As, and you can see everything. So everything was duplicated. So if an operator sat down at any particular location, it was identical. And the people that sit right here, I'm pointing, and that doesn't help you, does it? The person that sits here and the person that sits here are the run operators. So when we do multi-2, this person is running on, say, 20 meters, and this person is running on, say, 40 meters or 15 meters. And then this person on the outside are their partners. And they either interleave contacts in between QSOs of the guy running, usually multipliers. So this guy has to make a quick call while this guy is running, calling CQ. And so he's working multipliers. So that's how we designed the station. These are interlocked stations, so only one transmitter can be on at a time. And we can, another thing we do is this person will ask people to please QSY to the other run station so we can work another multiplier. So this is what the back of an Elecraft station looked like, but one of the things I wanted you to note was how much room there is to work behind the station. And I get more requests as to how do you build these desks. Then whenever I make a presentation, I always get somebody who wants to know, how did you do that? Well, what we did is we took sheets of plywood and we tried to maximize what we could do with a sheet of plywood. And then they're double reinforced. So this is laminate and this is laminate, and there's 3/4 inch plywood glued to the base of it so it doesn't, you know, sway. And but back here, the computers for logging, you know, everything. But one of the things I did a few years ago is I switched it all out to flex radio, and this was before they had the amplifier. And Ward, actually, N0AX was here for the first time we did a contest using the flex radio system. And then this is what it looks like with the new PGXL amplifiers. And when we do RIDI, right now, and you can do it with phone, you can use one 6600 and one amplifier, and you can operate 2 Maestros into the one radio and completely interlock and use half the gear. And so when I do SO2R, which is where I sit over here, I do SO2R myself. When I'm operating by myself, I use one 6600 and one amplifier. And one of the things that I should comment also about is that every antenna is available anywhere, and any stepper can operate from any particular radio. So you have what I did, and I think I have a picture here, is this is a server, and all the antennas come in here, and these are all of the rotators, and you know, all the filters and everything. All the antenna switching is done in this box. But I use green heron, and I set up a server here, so everything is running as served. Every rotator, every stepper, every antenna, whatever is served through the network. So there's only 4 cables that go to the radios. You'll see the four cables, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then on the screen, you'll see that, well, I don't have it up there. I'll show it to you in a minute. But on the screen, there's actually a way where it just follows the radio. So if you switch to 40 meters, and you're running, you get the 40 meter stack. It's all automatic. So I spent a lot of time thinking about this so that everything is easy for an operator. Sit down. You could be really tired at 2 o'clock in the morning. Chances are you're not going to make a mistake. So when you're building a VHF station, first of all, you got to decide what you want to do. And in my case, I really wanted to be competitive. I wanted to see if I could win. So you got to look at your competition. And these were some of the guys that are my competition. I got DRH twice. Well, he's worth double. Anyhow, but you guys probably know who some of these guys are. W0AIH is no longer with us. However, the station is still in operation because his son-in-law is a ham and he loves VHF contesting. So I've been to every one of these stations. And if you want to take a tour, K9NS actually is the contest call, and the guy just died. But they used to host a great big multi-operator station, and I visited this guy twice. In fact, I bought 8,000 feet of 1 5/8 from him that he was very kind to share with me. This is a look from his station. He lived in Harvard, Illinois. So you're sitting there, you're going, I got to compete against these guys. Look at what he's got. This is before I built my station. So here's Jerry, WB9Z, and I'm sure many of you have heard of him, but he's also competitive, obviously on the low bands, but also on VHF. That's a view from the air, a few things. This guy here, N0NI, also a very competitive station out in just north of Des Moines. And this is Paul's, W0AIH's station, 100 and some acres of towers everywhere. And again, I visited that. It was just amazing to be there. And K2DRH is not too far from me. He's about an hour and a half. And I can hear him quite well here, but this is what his stack looks like. So these are the kind of guys you got to compete against. So you better have the hardware.
I can hear Bob anytime here in Denver. He's just,
I'm sure you can.
just hours in.
Yep. And here, this is actually our director, and he hosts multi-ops a lot of times, but he operated by himself in the past contests because of the COVID situation. So here is the common denominator for all of these. Each of them has multiple towers. Each has many choices of antennas that have gain and directivity, and they are very competitive. So if you're going to build this station, you really got to look around and say, how am I going to compete against these guys? So what I did, I like EME. I had started on EME before, and that was one of the ingredients. So I built a nice 2-meter EME system. It's X-pole, so it's vertical and horizontally polarized. You receive on both. The software is MAP65, which is the WSJT software. If you go to his website, you can see it's downloadable and you can receive both polarities at the same time. So you're working guys a lot of times when other people are waiting for the Faraday rotation to come around. So anyhow, I built that, and I've got 94 or 95 countries on 2 meters, and I'm hoping to finish that up. This is where the operation, and there's the little 1500 flex radio that drives the Demi transverter, which drives the lunar link. And this is where you change the polarity. This is, I have it so it tracks the moon automatically. And then that's actually the SDR receiver right there. So, I mean, that just describes it. If you want more information, you can go to the website, and this information is there. But it really works well. I usually get on at the end of the month when right now the timing of that is that the loss on the path is the lowest. And that's usually when a lot of the DX stations get on that don't have really big stations, and you can try to work them. And I use it in the contest, and I'll come back to that. So this is actually how it's all tied together. And again, if you need more information, the preamps are at the tower, and there's a sequencer here that makes sure that the preamp is shut down. You know, I mean, there's just, when you go to transmit, you want to make sure everything's out of the way before you blow something up. So anyhow, this is what the VHF stack looks like. And actually you can see some climbers up there. And there's the OWAs that I use. Those are 9/9s. And I had 6M9s before. And as you mentioned earlier, these are very quiet antennas. They've got a great pattern. They're also very directive. So in the contest, you cannot have just this antenna, or you will not be able to win. But you'll see I got a stack of 2 antennas on every band. So this is what it looks like when you look from a drone. I flew a drone up there and I took a picture and said hi. And this is what it looks like. I had to replace, I have another set of vertical antennas, a 2-meter and a 222 antenna for simplex contesting with FM people on the VHF, and then also another LFA. And I have them so I can select them, because what happens is you can be, the whole stack is tower driven. If we go back one, you know, they're all together. If you rotate that, they're all there. So it's great for if you got a rover and you're running, you know, 6 through 1296. But if you got somebody that calls you on 2 meters from some other place, this is what I use, this single Yagi. So here's all the different antennas. And you'll see I have a lot of 6-meter antennas. You'll see I have the DB42s, which are 8 elements a piece. And there's 2M, I got an M squared 5-element, and we'll come to that. So here I am getting ready for the contest. And what I do is I run SO2R. So you can see on the Maestro right here, on the upper band adapter, you can see that's 6 meters, and on the lower one is 2 through 1296. And I have that set up so that I can constantly watch 2 meters to see if somebody shows up. Now in the June VHF contest, there was so much activity on 6 meters that after a while, I just said, I'm not gonna watch that. But you know, and you can see I was running FT8 at the moment, but what I did is I was able to quickly switch. So what I did is I had another computer, I had a Surface sitting over here where I could watch DX maps. There was actually several things I watched: DX maps and PSK reporter. You can see a better picture here. You can see where it's a PSK reporter being used. You can see all the rotators are right here, so that if I need to make rotate, I can rotate any of the Yagis, whether it's the M squared, 5-element, the 9/9, or I use the high stepper, the 8-element. And what I was doing was, you'll see over here, that's a green heron window that I made, and it allows me to use any combination of antennas. And so what I do is I'd say, okay, it's open to the east. You can see right here where my mouse is, it's open to the east. And I'll just put the stack that way. Well, there was probably, you'll see an opening down here to Texas. And so what I have is the M squared, all that tower it rotates through south. So I would use that towards the Caribbean for for any of the Caribbean or South America, or I'd switch it over to Texas or to Mexico. And then the 8-element, it usually was actually, maybe pointed west. And I would take any combinations of those. It depends on where the signals were coming from. And that's the only way you can really compete, is to have multi-antennas. And you could have them individually, or you can combine them in any combination. And the amplifier up here is a PGXL. It's a flex radio amplifier, it's solid state, and it'll run 1500 watts all day. And it just sits here. And I also have a Lunar Link 6-meter amp, but I put it down behind because I like this amp, because when a DX station comes on, you don't have to wait for it to warm up. It's just on. And 2, and then 222, 1296 all the way up, or 432. Let me go back up, pick back one here. Yeah, this one here. You can actually see that's 2 meters, 2 meters. and the 222 and the 432. Is there anybody there? Make sure I'm not talking to myself. Yeah, there they
Yeah,
are.
we're hearing you.
Oh, yeah.
We're
We're
here.
measuring.
God, it could be like a dead phone. You go, where'd everybody go?
Well, it's just the drooling that's going on at the other end. We gotta quiet it down a bit,
Exactly. We were totally in awe.
Anyhow, this is 902, and this is 1296. And I'm going to tell you right now, if I was going to do this again, I probably wouldn't invest in this because a lot of the operators that were on 902 and 1296 in the area have quit. And a lot of the rovers don't do it anymore. So the cost per QSO of even doing this is very high. So I actually have amplifiers and everything for them, and I've never put them in because there's, why even bother? One thing I should mention is I'm using a point-to-point internet link. I'm out in the middle of, nowhere. And I have an IQ router here, and everything is on the network. So you got all these flex radios, everything is on the network. And I don't use Wi-Fi. I initially started that way, but Wi-Fi is not a very, it's not the best backbone to be running a lot of stuff on. Almost everybody that brings in a smartphone or a laptop, I give them the password and they use the Wi-Fi, but I have it partitioned away from all of the traffic in the shack. And you've got all of this, you got spots coming in, and I actually compete on the live scoreboard against people, and I have that on here so I can see who I'm competing against. But anyhow, and then when I do have a friend come over to operate, I've done multi VHF, they will usually sit here and I just move the, say 2 through 1296 over here, and they do that, and I'll just do 6 meters and we'll just switch back and forth. And this is how it's all set up. And what's really interesting about this is in a flex radio, it has a USB port. And if you get it actually has a couple of USB ports, and they can be programmed to operate with FTDI devices. And Denkovi has a relay. It's very inexpensive. I think it's like 45 bucks. And so you can program it. So what I would do is, if you're familiar with N1MM, you can change bands by going control page up, page down, page up, page up. So I can easily go from 222, 432, 902, 1296, just by going control, page up, page up, page up. And so what I do is I program these relays in the software, and it's right in the Flex software, by the way. It's not like I have to do anything really brilliant or anything. You plug it in, you program it, and then I switch the IF and the PTT relays to all of the different transverters, which then drive the PTT to the different amplifiers. And then they have, the antennas directly connected. So I just say that because it's kind of a cool thing. I'm operating SO2R, so if, like in January, you might have a lot of activity where there's a rover, and most of the activity is going to be on 2. You contact them, you run the bands with them, and then you go to 6, which is the other band. And you can watch on 6 and see if there's activity there. But I operate SO2R because as an operator, you can actually be watching for the other operator. If you go up to 1296, a lot of times everybody's off frequency. But it's kind of neat to be able to look right on here and say, oh, there he is, and click on it, and you're with the operator. So this is what I look at when I'm on, and I'm sure you do this, but this is how I know where to point the antennas. I can see where the activity is from. This is for me. I put in K9CT, last 15 minutes, and during the contest it switches all the time, but a lot of times I already know that. This is what it looks like from N1MM, which is what I use, and I have a WSJT integrated with it. And as long as you have this log up here, WSJT already knows if you've worked a dupe or if it's a new one or a new grid, or which all the grids are multipliers. And that's the utility for the amplifier. So the amplifier actually could be outside in another building. Doesn't even need to be there.
What's that utility that you got there for the amplifier?
Well, it's free. You can go to the Flex website and just download it, but it works with the amplifier. And if you, I can just show you, there's a little icon here, which means that's, you know, like a setup utility. So if I click on that, it allows you to make, you can tie it to any radio. You can put it to a K3, you can switch hard PTT, you can do anything you want with it. And, the control is actually over Ethernet. So it's an IP address, and I actually have 3 PGXL amplifiers in the station. So I have to make sure I select the correct one, because I could be triggering the amplifier on the other side of the room if I'm not paying any attention. So you select the right amplifier, you tell it what radio and what slice. In other words, you know, when a radio, remember when I was showing you the Maestro, right up here, that's considered a radio. And they, in the vernacular of SDR, that'd be a slice. And down here, that's another radio. So what you're doing is this amplifier can operate on both. And if you look very closely, it'll tell you right now it says 6 meters. But because, if I was on low bands, it'd say like 40 and 20 meters. It'd know which bands these are on. But because I have this program to go and operate these, it doesn't see it. And this is all the green heron stuff. And again, this is how you lay it out. It's, if I click on the 87 here, oops, I did, well, it's not, if you were in the shack and you clicked on it, it would give you choices. And I have presets. I'd say, you know, Europe, South America, Japan, whatever, all of the usual places that you point. And then you just click it and it starts rotating the stack, and it'll take it right there. And or you can manually enter it here and then click to turn it, or you can stop it right there. And then this is the VHF tower. That was those 3 antennas I told you about, and that's where they're pointed. The high stepper, the 8 elements, that's at 150 feet. And so in this particular case, I had this antenna to the east, this one to the west, and the monster, which has the 5 element on it, was pointed at the Caribbean or South America. And now over here is the choice. You can see it says stack, 6M5, both, high, which is the DB42, and then 6M5 and high, stack and high, or all antennas. And it's amazing how many times in the contest you need to go to all antennas. It's open in that many directions. So I tell you, even if you set up something portable, you got to have more than 1 antenna to really be successful.
Now you can't hear on all antennas at the same time, right?
Oh yeah.
So am I listening that, so I'm just trying to figure out, how does the signal get there so it's all synchronized and everything? I mean, you're talking, you can have multipath.
Well, you know, let me talk about the physics of it. And
That's right.
The acoustical physics is the same as RF physics. So when you have 2 speakers and they're perfectly aligned, it's the same as antennas that are perfectly aligned if they're together. The trouble is when you try to splay them, which is if they were on the same tower, you're going to end up with a pattern that's awful. So you have to use physically isolated antennas so that they don't couple. You follow me?
Yeah, so like you got 1,500 feet to move them.
Well, yeah, you don't need that much room. The wavelengths are pretty small on 6 meters, but
Sure.
you know, I got a friend that NR5M, he has 33 rotators. He
Wow.
put up a system. I visited his station before I built mine, and you know, there's a lot of things that you do. You go, wow, this is amazing, and then you go, I ain't going to do that. So, you know, it's 33 rotators to fix is what I think about it. But what he was doing, he was splaying. It's not like he understood physics. And I mean, that wasn't his thing, but somebody should have told him, you know, you really don't have a 3 stack and say 0.1 at Europe, 0.1 at JA, and the other at South America. You're going to end up with a pattern that's just awful. And so, and you can model that on EasyNEC or NEC. You could do that yourself and see it. But I'm just telling you, just take my word for it. If you physically isolate the antennas and you just temporarily set up a 5 element over here on a tripod and another 5 element over here, you know, physically away, and then you combine them, you're going to find that it's invaluable. A kind of a funny thing. Do you guys use this contest online scoreboard? I don't hear any.
Never used it. Never used it.
No?
No.
Well, I got to tell you, if you want an element of fun, I use this almost every single contest. And this is the top dogs right here. See this? And you know, anybody that wants to, you know, compete online. Now, there's people that don't want to compete online, so they're not here. But let me tell you, it adds a whole element. But you look on here, it tells what the contest is. But look at what it says. The highest rate is 160 QSOs an hour by K9CT.
So is this real time or is this after the contest?
No, this is during the contest right here. This was during the contest, and it was about, I don't know, maybe 2/3 of the way through.
So
And what I got a kick out of, what's that?
They're feeding the logs live into this, right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Oops, go back here. I want to go back. There we go. What's funny is K5TR and I have had battles before. And I got to tell you, when we say battles, it's just fun. I don't want to make it sound like it's no different than two basketball teams playing each other or two football. You know, it's just a battle. It's fun. And George has got an unbelievable station down in Texas, and he has fixed antennas. So he just goes click, 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 click. He's got the East Coast, he's got the West Coast, and that's how he does it. Doesn't rotate anything. And I'll show you something later. But I just want you to note that at this point in time, I was 200 QSOs ahead. And I think what happened is George went to supper. Now here, I want you to see this because this really shows you what's going on. I assume you guys use all these tools, right?
Yeah.
This is DX maps. And this is just something you can quickly look at and you really know what's going on. And you can see where the E cloud is. It's right in here. It's right in here. You know, it's wherever that crosses that you can see that's where the E cloud is. And if you actually click the MUFEs, you can see all of the hot spots. And I got to show you this here. So here, what do you do when it's like this? You got to have antennas pointed everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So you can see, you know, and I can tell you right now, if I didn't have antennas pointed everywhere, I probably wouldn't pick up those guys like over here or the guy up here. Because what happens is most of the guys that you work in a contest are not contesters. They're people that are S&Ping and just having a good old time. And they don't look at any of this stuff. But if I didn't have an antenna pointed that way, that casual guy in Phoenix would never call me. And they usually will say, oh, God, I just put this wire out the window and unbelievable, you know?
So when you transmit with multiple antennas, are you actually transmitting on 3 antennas at the
Yes.
same time? So, all right, so your RF is split literally 3 ways. So if you have 1,000 watts,
like 500 watts here, 500 watts here, 500 watts here.
okay.
Yep. And Stack Match is a device that you can buy from Array Solutions and actually several other people. But it combines the impedances of the antennas so that your amplifier is happy.
Wow.
Best way to, and I got one, the best one that I have, and I got to tell you, the real key is the amount of isolation between antennas. But on a Stack Match, it's not really critical. But there's a company, Ham, I'll think of it. But you saw my switch up there for the antennas. It was a 12x4. So 12 antennas can be assigned to any one of 4 radios. And that company is based out of Brazil. And Green Heron has a Stack Match from them. And it's got the Green Heron device in it. So I can wirelessly talk to it and do up to 4 antennas. And on 40 meters, that's a really fantastic thing to have. And you can also do combinations of other antennas. So you may have, like, I'll take the one, like if I was doing the 160 contest, you got to have a way to combine the 160 array with the dipole. Or if you're doing on 80, you got to have, I got a dipole for that on CW. And I got, on 40, I have a lot of different antennas, and that's probably one of the heavy lifting bands. I just want to show you what it looks like. You know, I just have all these J's called. I just grabbed this particular one, but I had so many calling. It was actually all orange. It was a pileup. I sent it to my friends. I just got the biggest kick out of it. But listen to this. You're hearing the amplifier.
I don't hear much.
You don't hear it?
No audio.
Oh, nothing here.
That's me transmitting. You can see it up close as to what it looks like. So that's what it's like. So I got to tell you, I want you to take a look at the statistics from this. These are all in the contest. In 30 hours, I operated, I think, 27.5 hours. And these are all the countries I worked. You can see them. Those are all multipliers. And I found out later why it said I worked Russians. I didn't work any Russians. Well, I worked one on 2 meters on the moon. But you know what those are? Those were rovers. It thought that they were Russians. So it interpreted the suffix as a Russian station. So what's interesting is I made 1,005 QSOs on 6 meters. So you could tell the activity was really up. And this is really low if you look back in the stats. 25 QSOs on 2, 3 on 222, 4 on 432, 1 on 902. I didn't even make one on 1296. We tried, but so these are higher point QSOs, but every one of them is a multiplier. And so the multipliers are key. So I ended up with 1,038. I actually made more QSOs, but a lot of them were dupes. So I want to point out something. If you look here, this is every hour that I operated. And over here is the QSOs per hour. And I can tell you right now, a lot of this was FT8. The band wasn't open. It's a very low rate. But I watch it like a hawk. And when I see we're starting to get zeros or higher on signal, I jump right to the sideband.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the key, because this was dinner time, and I think K9CT went to dinner, and I got him right here. So you wouldn't want to miss anything, would you? So I actually didn't eat that night until 10 o'clock. You know, I quit. And then what I did here is I had some skeds at midnight, and K9CT, who beat me, him and I ran schedules on the meteor scatter. And I worked some other guys. And then the rest of the guys, this was all EME. And of course, every one of them's a multiplier, and that's where the Europeans came from. And it's very slow. It's not fast. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, I thought, you know, I better go to bed. So then I got up at 5:30 because I remembered I had a schedule at 6. So that was what little sleep I had. And then you could see it, oops, the lumber's along here, so, but if you don't do it, and then at the end, I got an opening. I got another 67 Qs. So it's just, the key here is you got to stay in the chair the whole time. But look at how slow the rate really is on FT8. But what I did at the end, because K9CT was on my butt, I worked I worked everyone that was a new multiplier. Everyone, I purposely picked new multipliers only because I made a huge change to my score. So you can see.
Craig, I wanted to make a comment, go back to your time chart there.
Yeah.
So for us, or at least those of us that were sort of only half paying attention, there was that Sunday night opening, right? The end of the contest. And I got on FT4, and normally I'm not seeing many stations on FT4 during a VHF contest.
Yep.
But people must have figured it out, because I was on FT4 probably making 50 contacts an hour.
Yep.
For the last couple hours of the contest. I mean, you know, and you know about FT4, I mean, you really can't even think. You know, you don't have enough time to really think.
Right, you got to be clicking as fast as you can click.
Yeah, and it was just constant for like 3 hours.
What I did is, because the Maestro is a spectrum, you know, you're seeing the spectrum, you could see FT4. It was empty Saturday. And here's FT8 on 313 and 318, I believe, was FT4. So I could see the activity. So I'd jump up there, I'd work everybody that I could work, and then I'd just jump back.
Yeah.
But what happened is I was watching my competition, you know, through all my other, I knew that they had an opening I didn't have. The East Coast was working Texas. K9CT was going crazy. Then there was an opening going up to the Northwest out your way. And then all of a sudden I got an opening going west right here. This is where it was. And so I scrambled, and almost everybody that came back to me obviously was a new station, but they were in a new grid. So you got to just be paying attention to what goes on. So here's some of the, you know, the runs that I had. And this is how I divided up. So FT8, I had about 400 queues. I had 6 FT4 queues. I think, and if you'll see here, MSK 144, and then CW, look at how many CW queues.
Wow.
And these are not duplicates. The CW, what's interesting is a lot of the CW operators from the low band contests, when they find out that it's open, they jump up here.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost everybody that you know. 503 on phone, and I can operate way faster on phone than any other mode. And then JT65, which is EME, meteor scatter right below it. And of course, you can see this is mostly working rovers or other stations. This is my 6 meter. When I was done, I just looked at, you know, what did I work? You can see this was the huge, you can see New England right here. Just huge amount of people. And then of course, DX, very little Florida. Normally we work the heck out of Florida. And I'm sure that they were mad because they hardly had an opening. Then of course, the Texas grids right down in here. And then the scattering out through the West. And I think you guys really had a bum time for the most part because it didn't really open until the end of the contest, did it?
No, it didn't. It was
The first hour and the last 2, basically.
Yeah.
Very frustrating. So this contest is really about luck too. You know, you gotta, you know, I don't know what else. You just gotta be prepared for that. There could be times where nothing happens and then you get on meteor scatter. You gotta have all these other tools to get a score. I'm gonna show you something that comes off of that online scoreboard. And you can pick anybody you want. You can pick your friend and you can have a competition. But when you're done, you can look at the results. So here you can see where I jumped way ahead of him by 200 Qs. This is K9CT down here. And then this is me right here. And then here is the multipliers that you worked during that period of time. And you can see he almost caught me. Maybe he even did right here in the morning. And then he almost caught me again. He was actually ahead of me by like 4 or 5 multipliers. And then I beat him at the end. But here's actually the score. And you can see I beat him right here as a result of that. I still had the 200 Qs, but he was getting me with multipliers. So it's kind of fun to know the math that goes behind all of these things too, as to how they work. But you can do that with every contest. And this is what it looks like right now. The East Coast guys had a great opening. Look at how many QSOs. Actually, the only person that beat me on 6 meters was K9CT. That was all 6 meters. So they had the best place to be in the entire contest. But what? What about the grids, the multipliers? Look at that. I beat him on multipliers. And then K9RZ, both the K9RZ and K9TEO worked a lot of 2 through 1296 stations, you know, with a lot of points per QSO, and they're all new grids. So it's kind of like working a DX contest from where we live. Hard to beat the East Coast.
Yeah.
Way it is. But of course, this is not the final results or anything, but this is what everybody posted as their score, and it's a lot of fun. So I look back to see how I done in the past, and once I did a multi-op, and I had K9CT come over, and we took turns on 6 and on 2 through 1296, and we had 389,000. And you can see though the difference was we had 145 Qs on 2 meters, and that's because you got to have an operator doing it, and it's hard to do it when you're doing it all by yourself. And of course, my second best was back, and again, you look back, and it's higher multipliers for being on the higher bands. So I just talk a little bit about, you know, I tie the ribbons on this a little bit, but winning a contest, you got to have the location. So sometimes you're just the way where you are, and that's it. You got to settle for, you know, pick your peer and your goal, make it realistic, because you're not going to beat somebody in the East Coast that's in the middle of a bunch of VHFers or whatever. You got to be lucky, of course. But the station build obviously is important. Operator skills are important, and of course luck. And you guys had bad luck because you just didn't get as much 6-meter propagation that time. But next year it could be completely different. It could be all yours. This is the thing I talk about when I talk about operating skills: is rate, multipliers. Multipliers are overlooked. Of course, field days there's no multipliers, but you know, if there was, it'd be like working every section or whatever. If you're working sweepstakes, it'd be every section. Accuracy, because if you make a mistake, especially in sweepstakes or some other contests, they're not only you're gonna lose the cue, but they might ding you a couple penalty strokes if you're a golfer. And the competing, you gotta have your own goal. And then what I do is I always look back at the results from your competitors and prepare to do similar. When I do a program on just contesting skills, and these are really important, especially if you want to do high speed. Like I just did WPX, and I made, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 QSOs in a weekend. And so you got to be able to type accurately. And what I found is I'm a fast typer because I learned it in high school. But as I get older, I found out I've become dyslexic. So I always have to watch what I'm typing to make sure. I think I'm typing it, but my fingers aren't doing what my brain says anymore. So you want to make sure you don't just make a mistake in typing. Accurate typing is key. One of the things that I always talk about with people is timing. And you can listen to this. If you're on 6 meters and you're on phone and you listen to how people operate, you know, let's say you're chasing a DX station, timing is everything. Well, contesting timing is everything also. Should you waste a lot of time calling somebody if you don't have a chance, even if it's a multiplier? Well, you got to make that decision. You know, maybe propagation is going to change and it'll be better, and then the guys in Florida won't have the better pattern. But you got to be able to do timing. And one of the things I always tell people is don't be so quick with your call. A lot of times it's the guy that waits, you know, a half a second, and you get the last 2 letters of the call, because everybody calls at the same time. And you think back at how many times that they said, in my case, they might say Charlie Tango, or, you know, whatever. Just remember that, because, you know, a lot of times being the first, if you're not really the loudest and you're just the same as everybody else, you might want to just drag your feet a little bit. And in de-expeditioning in particular, you never want to call right on frequency. You want to call off frequency. Don't try to always be on the same frequency as the guy that called, especially in CW. It turns into just nothing but a tone, and you can't copy anybody. The other thing is you really need to know your station. And the way to do that is you need to use it a lot, so that if you're going to do a contest in particular, you're not fumbling around. And one of the things that happens when you get really tired is you make mistakes, and you might blow up an amplifier, or you might use the wrong antenna, or and you just need to have things automated so you don't make mistakes. I think as much as you guys operate on 6 meters, you do understand it and you use the tools. That's the same with low bands. You always want to get on a month early, because the sun comes around a month later and it does usually about the same thing propagation wise. it's just fascinating. I'll get on several days prior to a contest just to see what it's going to be like, so I can kind of coach the operators when they come. We always talk about that. I practice CW and phone all the time. I do CW ops usually on Wednesday. I didn't do it today, but that's a great way to practice your CW skills. And I found that if you do that often, when it comes time for a contest on a weekend, you're very comfortable. You're not nervous at all. You just sit down and start operating. I think setting up your station to operate comfortably even just for that contest, you just need to clear out everything. You know, if you're just going to do 6 meters, get everything else that doesn't have anything to do with it, just what you need. And the other thing is you got to have a comfortable chair. You got to have the right lighting. You need to be rested and fit. I try to run 25 to 30 miles a week. Even at my age, I don't run like I used to, but I try to stay fit and well rested, especially like 2 nights before the contest. And I always try to plan my meals, my drinks, my rest in the contest. You got to give it some thought. My particular activity on 6, you guys probably, as of today, actually, I worked in a new country. So I made this slide yesterday or the day before, whatever it was, and I had 122, and now I have 123. And so DXCC challenge went from 2988 to 2989. And my goal is to get to 3,000, but without any DXpedition on because of COVID-19, it's might be a while. Right today, I spent 3 hours chasing CM93. In fact, I just saw a Slack thing come through where they think the band's waking up. I need CM93 and I need DMO2, and I'll have FFMA. And as of the moment when I made this, I had 808 6-meter grids confirmed. And I've done some EME on 6-meter horizon only. So one of the things I decided to do after a friend of mine, ND0B, Bill, and I were chasing CM93, and that was his last grid he needed for FFMA. And one of the tricks he said is he used an additional receiver and decoder on FT8. And so I did that, I prepared that. And then the other thing I'm doing is I'm actually going to make an EME array where I can track the moon instead of just be horizon only. So here's my station right now. This is the way it's set up this minute. And you can see on the left is the Flex radio decoding. And over here, I bought an AirSpy R2. That's the whole radio right there.
Yep.
It's a USB radio.
Yep.
And up here is SDR console. And I'm using VAC for the audio interface. And of course, that's WSJT. But here I am. I'm splitting the antenna, and I got an antenna protection device here. And then I split it with a 50 ohm splitter, and I'm feeding both at the same time. So I'm seeing decoding on 2 different algorithms. And I've actually brought up JTDX on here too, so that I've got 2 different ways of it's kind of like running RTTY and having multiple decoders.
So
and this is
you're running WSJT on that particular picture on both of them?
Yes.
What's your other decoder?
What's that?
What's your other decoder besides WSJTX?
JTDX.
Okay.
Which is a variation of WSJT because it's open source code.
So have you
noticed the other thing about?
Have you noticed any difference yet? You know, between 2 setups?
Yeah, you know, I got to be honest with you. I took this picture this morning. So what I did was I was saying, how many times did it decode? You know, did I get 10 stations here? Did I get 10 over there? What's the difference in the signal level? You know, in terms of signal to noise ratio. You know, I was trying to make some determinations and one of the comments that Bill was talking about was how SDR console handled noise. And of course, you never know when noise is going to be a problem. So, you know, it's just a different way of, it's like diversity reception on the low bands. I just thought, well, why not? It doesn't cost a lot of money. It's, you know, that receiver's, I think 160 some bucks. I didn't spend a lot of money here. just to get more information. So it's just interesting.
Are you using any preamps in front of
Yes,
the-
I have on that particular setup right now. Normally I would use just the 40 dB preamp in the Flex because I've run it against, I have an ARR right behind here that's I think 26 dB, and it's plenty. And of course I shut this to, and I don't even use that. I run directly into the SDR using the loop in the 6700. So I come out of the splitter, I hit the loop, and then I go over here and with the other side of the splitter and feed directly in right there with a BNC connector.
Right, right. That's what I've got too, the ARR and the R2.
Yep. So it's just fascinating. I'm going to keep experimenting with this because I can actually run another antenna into it as well, and actually have phase, arrival time changes, which is what diversity would be. But of course, they're not locked clocks, so that part is not true. But it just depends on how it would decode it. So if it provided you with a decode that you wouldn't get on the other one, and you make a QSO, and it's a new DX station, hey, it's worth it.
So if you see it on the other screen, you click on it, does it starts the transmit procedure for you automatically?
I don't click on anything over here. This is independent, over here only.
But if you only see the decode on the right one, how do you have to like type it all in then?
Well, no, because you already got the call. I'm chasing a station.
Right.
One advantage, by the way, of JTDX is you can do filtering for DX.
Right.
Which is, so you're not looking at a ton of information. You're only looking for the call you're chasing. This is just a mess. I hate looking at all this because you can't look fast enough, and I'm sure you know what I mean. If you see 40 calls, it's like, where the heck is it? It's like a needle in the haystack. So, it's just a matter of going to the next sequence. That's all you have to do.
So
right?
do you use, in this case, I think you said you were looking for a specific station, right? But
Right.
Do you use JT Alert to help do filtering and other things?
I don't need that because it's built into this, and I'm using PSK Reporter with other filters, and I use, I don't need a lot of things. So I use at home here, which is where I'm at, I have my station over here, and I use DX Labs, and Spot Collector is running all day. And it's my main, every log I do at my contest station integrates with all my logs here at home. And then all my record keeping is done here. So I use Dropbox to keep my logs off base, off campus. So in case something happens, I got all my logs. And then, but this monitors for any new country. So when the ZP came on today, which I needed for a new country, I got an email, and then there was actually 2 ZPs on at the same time. So we had TEP with E, which is great. So then I got that email, I jumped off my mower, ran in, and I worked them. So I try to stay as locked in. Now I use another one called Ham Alert. Now AG6EE is, I shouldn't tell you guys because you'll be all over the place. But anyhow, there's some grids that are really rare and so anytime anybody would spot them, even if they're a W6 or whatever, I get an email from Ham Alert telling me that person's on the air on 6 meters.
That's pretty neat.
But I do that. And FFMA is on here, but there's really nothing. I have all of them verified and confirmed and verified. So the only thing I need is those 2. So I really drill into those. But over the years, when you had 20 and then you had 18 and then you had 14 or whatever, I knew exactly what was going on, but I knew the second they got on the air, so I try to use every tool possible. But anyhow.
So a quick question. So
yeah,
we're talking about VHF here, but I'm curious, what's your favorite contest just in general, or favorite contests in general?
Oh boy, I hate to choose, but I love 160, and I love CW. So I have to almost say ARRL 160.
Mm-hmm.
And I do something unique there because I do SO2R on the same band. And so it's kind of hard to touch me. You know, I mean, because I can operate pretty quick. And so the only thing that interferes with that is if a Bradley basketball game's going on, then I'm usually at the Bradley basketball game. So this year it interfered with that. But normally I go at it pretty hard. And so I have a Sal 30 that's 1,100 feet from the array, and you put that on the receive B. And so I have, and by the way, N1MM does not allow you to be on the same band. So what you have to do is you put your radio on both bands, and then you turn on N1MM. And don't change anything, you know, it'll just accept it. And so then what I do is I can tune for stations that I haven't worked in the other ear. And then if somebody doesn't come back to a CQ, I drop my call, you know, control F4. And I drop my call in the other slice, they come back to me, I work on it, and actually you can get to the point where you can just kind of go back and forth. You call CQ, guy comes back to you, you answer the call over here while you're listening, and you can just go back and forth, just like that. And contests, you can't do that. You can do SO2R, but you have to stop is like sweepstakes. I like sweepstakes, but it's a long exchange, so you have to listen really carefully. So you can't be, you know, listening in another ear. The RTTY contests, I won CQ World, or I won this year ARRL's RTTY Roundup, and I did it with SO2R, and I love that because you can just be going back and forth. I use a mouse with a roller ball, and I just roll from screen to screen, and I just, you know, click, right click, enter, 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 and I just go back and forth, and you can run rate. You know, you can go 100 to 120 an hour on RTTY by just rolling back and forth. And I just get the biggest kick out of that. It's so much fun. What you got to do is be cool enough to do it so that the other guy doesn't know that you're talking to somebody else at the same time you're talking to him.
Wow.
Because a radio, just so you know, there's only one transmitter.
Right.
So you can't make that mistake. There is only one transmitter. So before you had to have them interlock so that you couldn't transmit on the other one while you're, you know, transmitting. So, but with a 6600 Flex, there is one transmitter and there's two receivers. So you can only transmit on one. So you got to kind of wait. But anyhow, it's a lot of fun, and I laugh the whole time. I just get the biggest kick out of the contest. It's a real riot. This is going to be this is the beginning of my 6-meter EME, and you'll notice it's got the curved back.
Yeah.
This is the one that you were just showing off.
Yeah.
And this is going to be, this was recommended if I was going to build a 4 antenna array. So, and what I've done is I put up AB 577. You've probably seen these before. And I'm in the process right now of, I've taken a great big barn hinge, and I'm going to clamp it to the square boom, so I could tilt it, and then you can just rotate that. So, and and of course, if you've seen these, you can just raise it to wherever you need it. So you just, they call that a launcher. So you crank it up.
They're great.
What?
I've used those on field day. They're great.
Yeah, I bought a couple of them. I don't think you can even buy them anymore, but this is pretty cool. That's it.
Wow, that's very, very good. And thanks so much, Craig. That's an awesome, awesome system you have there. I was just so excited, and like I said, drooling. Everyone's drooling now, but I love the operating skills that you've got, and there's so much to learn from just listening to you. I've recorded this session, so we're going to put this the link onto the website so we can look at it again and again. I think we can learn a lot there. Are you going to be in the CQ Worldwide in July? VHF?
Yes, I like to do that. I've even done roving in that contest. I went to EN67. No, yeah, that's it. Up on Mount Brockway. I did that a couple of times in CQ Worldwide VHF. I probably won't do it this year, but I'll be on. I always like the contest.
Oh, hopefully I get my antennas back up. I'll work you too. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much, and appreciate you coming on. I hope you come back and listen to some of our other presenters next week. We got Ward's going to be on here as well on July the 8th.
Yep. Well, he'll do a great job. He's a very interesting man, and I've heard this presentation that he does 2 or 3 times now, and it's great every time. So
Awesome.
got a treat coming. He's funny. He's a lot of fun.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody. Does anybody have a question for Craig before he leaves? Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah, Craig, very interesting, amazing station, probably beyond the reach of most of us, but pretty impressive. Your results for June this year were pretty much a 6-meter result, which is typical for June. It's often the case, although most of the results that I've seen in VHF contests in the past have had higher scores on some of the higher bands than you did. I just wonder, in September, it's a very different contest. It's not a 6-meter contest, and I wonder what your plans are for that contest.
Well, it's mostly a 2-meter contest to go to the heart, because that's how you end up making all your QSOs. You start on 2, and then you go from there. So what you do is you have to organize who are all the rovers that are going to be in the area. They're critical because you want to work them everywhere they go. And you find out what bands are going to be on and what their schedule is. That's how you run up a score. We have a club, Society of Midwest Contesters, which is a fairly large club. And, you know, that's one of those that we use as a counter for our membership as an important contest. So we drum up activity for that, and then we try to work everybody. You know, they say they're going to get active, and they tell you who's going to get active. And like K9CT is one of the premier operators. You probably know who he is.
Yep.
He usually wins low power every year. And if you just follow him around, you probably won't go wrong. He's been to a station many times. He's a great guy. And but the trouble is where we're located, it's very difficult. I can tell you 20, 30 years ago, there was so much activity on 144-200, it was people complained because guys would stay on the frequency too long. I'm sure you all remember that. But now you can call CQ until you're blue in the face and wonder if anybody's listening. But I get on and I call CQ in a contest like the VHF contest. I'll call CQ on CW. Somebody may not even know CW. They'll hear the CW and they'll come back to you on sideband. But I try to make as much noise as I possibly can on 144-200. And what I do is I rotate my stack around in all directions, and I work everybody I can in every possible direction. But I got to tell you, this June VHF, I did that on 2. Nobody was even on. It was like dead. When I ran tests with K2DRH the 2 nights before, the bands were, I mean, it was hard to even hearing. The conditions were really not very good for 2 on up through 1296. So yeah, there were some rovers out, but it was hard to work them. It wasn't, and of course 6 meters, I think because of FT8, it was on constantly because you're working guys below the noise. We couldn't do that before. Guys would call CQ on CW and go away, you know.
Yep.
So FT8's changed everything.
Yeah, tell me about it. It'll be interesting to see in September. Contesting where I live now is kind of a wasted time.
Yeah.
Living in a valley out here in the west, but and not even on the coast. Things were different. I lived in Ontario before I moved out here, and things were quite different there. So I know well about trying to compete with the East Coast, and K9CT is an awesome
Yes, he is.
strength that way. So
Yep.
anyways, good luck. One thing you do have going for you where you live is the Midwest Tropo, and you might get lucky and get some of that this year.
Yeah,
so,
we get August and
best
September
luck.
when a slow front's moving through, and over the years, you know, it could be open from Texas to the East Coast. You know, I've even had E-skip on 2 meters to Cuba. You know, it's just like, what? You know, the MUF gets so high. You know, if you see on 6 meters, the skip's getting to be so short, 2 might be open. So.
Well, best luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, any other
Thanks,
questions?
guys.
Okay, I think that's it. Well, thank you very much, Craig, and let you get to sleep now. It's getting late.
I might even run over to the station because in California, it's 6 might be open yet. So
That's true. It's true. All right,
anybody
guys.
look at the X maps? Anyhow, 73s, guys. Have a
Thanks
nice
a
evening.
lot. 73.
Thank
Great
you.
presentation.
Craig, 7-3.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Paul.